Captain June Park's fingers tapped nervously on the arm of his command chair as the HSS Defiant drifted silently at the edge of human space. The ship's engines were powered down to minimal levels to avoid detection, but Park feared it was already too late. "Any change, Lieutenant Kim?" he asked, his voice steady despite the tension gripping his chest. Hannah Kim shook her head, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "No, sir. The alien vessels maintain their formation. There are thousands of them." The bridge crew worked in hushed silence, the gravity of their discovery weighing heavily upon them. What had begun as a routine exploration mission had become something far more dire. Science Officer Ta Li bent over his scanner, his normally cheerful face now grim. "I've completed analysis of their ship designs. These match exactly with the descriptions from the Arcturus colony attack last year. These are definitely Krell vessels." Park nodded. The Krell had been a distant threat until now, attacking only the most remote human outposts. Everyone had assumed they were merely testing human defenses or conducting raids. But this was no raiding party. This was an invasion force. The largest Krell fleet ever reported contained 50 ships, Park said quietly. "We're looking at thousands." Communications specialist Da Song hunched over his console, adjusting frequencies. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions between their vessels. The encryption is complex, but our new translation matrix is working on it." "How long?" Park asked. "Just a few more seconds. Wait." Song's face paled. "It's coming through now, sir." He pressed a button, and harsh, clicking sounds filled the bridge. Beneath the alien language, the ship's computer provided a translation in a flat, emotionless voice. "The human infection must be purged. All colonies will be sterilized. The homeworld will be cleansed." A chill ran through the bridge. Park exchanged glances with his executive officer, Commander Subin Kang, whose usually stoic expression had cracked to reveal genuine fear. "We need to warn Earth," Kang whispered. Park nodded grimly. The Defiant carried the only faster-than-light communications array in this sector. If they didn't get word back to Earth Command, the first warning humanity would have of the coming Krell invasion would be when their ships appeared in orbit. "Prepare a data package with everything we've gathered," Park ordered. "Include visual records and the translated communications. Priority Alpha transmission to Earth Command." Lieutenant Kim suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, multiple Krell vessels are breaking formation. Energy signatures increasing. They're powering weapons systems." Park's heart sank. "They've detected us." 6 ships moving to intercept, Kim reported, her voice remarkably calm. "Estimated time to weapons range: 4 minutes. Chief Choi, we need the quantum drive online now," Park ordered through the ship's comm. The chief engineer's voice came back strained. "The drive needs 10 minutes to cycle, Captain. We pushed it too hard getting here." "We don't have 10 minutes, Chief." "I understand that, sir, but physics doesn't care about our timetable. I can try to bypass some safety protocols. But even then, 7 minutes minimum." Park turned to Navigation Officer Min Ba. "Plot us a course out of here, maximum conventional drive. Get us some distance while the quantum drive spins up." Ba's fingers flew over his console, then he shook his head. "Sir, they've positioned ships at all potential exit vectors. We're surrounded." Chief Engineer Choi's voice came through again. "Captain, I've been monitoring. Even if we get the quantum drive online, we'd never break through their blockade. Those ships are positioned precisely to prevent a quantum jump." Silence fell over the bridge as the reality of their situation sank in. The Defiant was trapped, a small exploration vessel facing an armada of alien warships. Park stood slowly, his mind racing through options that grew more desperate by the second. "Status of our weapons systems: fully operational," Kim replied. "But our armaments were designed for self-defense, not taking on multiple warships. And our experimental shields: online and at full capacity, but they've never been tested in actual combat." Park nodded. A plan, or at least the beginning of one, forming in his mind. "Die, is the data package ready for transmission?" "Yes, sir," Som replied. "But the Krell might intercept it." "Encrypt it with the new quantum algorithm," Park ordered. "And prepare the probe launchers." Understanding dawned on Commander Kang's face. "You're going to use the probes as decoys." "Exactly," Park confirmed. "We'll launch all 12 probes simultaneously, each one broadcasting a copy of our warning. The Krell will have to split their forces to chase them all down. And while they're distracted," Kang began. "We fight," Park finished, his voice hard with determination. "We won't outrun them or outgun them, but we can be smarter. We need to buy time for at least one of those probes to reach transmission range." The tactical display updated as more Krell ships broke from the main fleet, moving to intercept the Defiant. They were running out of time. "All hands to battle stations," Park ordered, his voice carrying throughout the ship. "This is not a drill. I won't lie to you. We are outnumbered and outgunned. But what we do in the next few hours may determine the survival of our species. The Defiant may fall, but humanity must stand." As the alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Park returned to his command chair, his resolve hardening. "Let's give them a fight they'll remember." Sparks flew from the exposed panel as engineer Juno Choi worked frantically in the cramped maintenance shaft. His uniform was soaked with sweat, hands moving with practiced precision, despite the ship's occasional violent lurch as it dodged Krell weapons fire. "Hand me the phase coupler," he said without looking up. When no tool appeared, he turned to find Captain Park kneeling beside him, already holding out the requested device. "I thought you'd be on the bridge," Choi said, taking the tool. "I needed to see this for myself," Park replied, watching as Choi reconnected a series of glowing blue cables to the quantum drive's control matrix. "Is this really going to work?" Choi laughed, but there was no humor in it. "This is insanity. We're essentially rewiring the most powerful drive system ever created by humans to do something it was specifically designed not to do." "Do we have a choice?" Park asked quietly. Choi paused his work for a moment, meeting his captain's eyes. "Modifying the quantum drive this way could tear us apart before the Krell even get a shot at us. We're talking about creating localized space-time distortions inside our own ship. How long until it's ready?" 4 hours, minimum. And that's if everything goes perfectly." Park nodded, his expression grim. "You have too." The ship shuddered as a Krell energy weapon grazed their shields. Park steadied himself against the wall. "I'll leave you to it," he said, then added, "The entire crew is counting on you, Shuno." "No pressure," Choi muttered as the captain disappeared down the corridor. Up on the bridge, Lieutenant Hannah Kim hunched over her console, analyzing data streams alongside the ship's artificial intelligence. "Myena, can you analyze these Krell communication patterns? We need to find a weakness." The AI's serene feminine voice responded over the ship's speakers. "I am detecting a synchronized oscillation pattern across all vessels. They appear to share a network consciousness." Kim frowned. "You mean they're all connected? Like a hive mind?" "Not exactly," Myne replied. "Each ship maintains individual functions, but tactical decisions and coordination occur through a shared quantum network. It is remarkably efficient. And potentially exploitable," Kim said, her fingers flying across the console to refine the analysis. The main view screen showed the asteroid field they had retreated into, massive rocks tumbling slowly through space. Commander Kang stood before it, directing their evasive maneuvers with calm precision. "Hard to port," he ordered. "Use that large asteroid for cover and cut engines to minimal power." The helmsman complied, guiding the Defiant behind a spinning rock 3 times the size of their ship. On the tactical display, red dots representing Krell vessels moved in a coordinated search pattern. "They're boxing us in," Kang reported as Park returned to the bridge. "Closing from 3 vectors. They've learned from our previous evasive patterns." Park studied the display. "They're adapting too quickly, almost as if they know what we're going to do before we do it." That's consistent with a networked intelligence, Mina interjected. They share information instantaneously. In engineering, Choi had assembled his most skilled technicians. They worked in pairs, modifying systems that were never meant to be altered in such ways. Junior engineer Ju Yoon, barely 25, but already known for her brilliant theoretical work, passed Choi tools without being asked, anticipating his needs with uncanny accuracy. "What if we're thinking about this all wrong?" she said suddenly. Choi looked up from the circuit board he was reconfiguring. "What do you mean?" "We're trying to overload the drive to create a massive energy pulse. But what if we went the opposite direction?" She pointed to the quantum field stabilizers. "If we invert the quantum field alignment, we could create unpredictable micro-jumps instead." Choi stared at her, then at the drive schematic. Multiple short-range jumps instead of one big explosion. The ship could pop in and out of normal space almost randomly. Yoon continued excitedly. "They wouldn't be able to target us effectively." Choi looked up at her, a new idea forming. "Not just unpredictable, we could make them targeted. Jump directly into their formation, then out again before they can react." He hit the comm button. "Captain, we may have something." Meanwhile, on the bridge, Kim had made a breakthrough of her own. "Captain," she called, "I've isolated the frequency pattern the Krell use for ship-to-ship communication. It's unlike anything I've seen before." Park joined her at the science station. "Can we jam it?" "Not exactly. It's based on quantum entanglement, particles linked across space, communicating instantaneously regardless of distance." Mina's voice came over the comm. "Captain, I have analyzed this data. The Krell network relies on quantum entangled particles for instantaneous communication. If we could disrupt that entanglement, we could blind them." Park finished, a glimmer of hope in his eyes for the first time since discovering the fleet. At that moment, Choi's voice came through the comm system. "Captain, Engineer Yoon, and I have a plan for the drive. It's risky, but it might just work." "Explain," Park ordered. "Instead of one powerful burst, we can modify the drive to create a series of micro-jumps. We'd be unpredictable, appearing and disappearing around their fleet." Park looked at Kim, then back at the tactical display where more Krell ships were closing in. "And if we combine that with a way to disrupt their quantum communications network," Park said slowly, "we could throw their entire fleet into chaos." Kim finished. For the first time since the mission began, a slight smile appeared on Park's face. "Get Choi up here. We need to coordinate these plans." Within minutes, the ship's senior officers gathered around the tactical table, a holographic display of the Krell fleet hovering above it. "Here's what we're going to do," Park said, his voice steady with newfound determination. "We're going to turn our quantum drive into both a weapon and a shield. We'll jump into their formation, deploy devices to disrupt their network, then jump out before they can respond. Each jump will strain the drive severely," Choi warned. "We might get 3 or 4 before it fails completely." "Then we make each one count," Park replied. "Prepare jump targets that will cause maximum confusion. Priority on their command ships." As the officers dispersed to their stations, Park remained at the tactical display, studying the massive Krell fleet. The Defiant was one ship against thousands, but for the first time, he saw a path forward, not just to escape, but perhaps to strike a meaningful blow. "They think they have us trapped," he said quietly. "Let's show them how dangerous a cornered human can be." The space around the HSS Defiant darkened as the main Krell fleet arrived. Ship after ship appeared, their metal hulls reflecting the distant starlight. Soon, thousands of alien vessels filled the view screen, so many that they blocked out the stars behind them. Captain Park stood on the bridge, his face calm despite the fear he felt inside. This was no longer just a scouting force. This was the main invasion fleet. "How many?" he asked quietly. Lieutenant Kim checked her sensors. "At least 5,000 ships, sir. Maybe more." A tense silence fell over the bridge. No human fleet had ever faced such overwhelming odds. The comm system crackled. Engineering to bridge. Choi's voice sounded tired but determined. Quantum drive modifications complete. Good work, Chief, Park replied. What are our limitations? The calculations aren't pretty, Captain, Choi said. The stress on the drive systems is extreme. But Captain, this will destroy the ship if we use it more than 3 times. The energy buildup will overwhelm our containment fields. Park nodded, though Choi couldn't see him. Let's make them count. On the main screen, the first wave of Krell ships formed an attack pattern, their weapons ports glowing with gathered energy. They're preparing to fire, warned Kim. Park took a deep breath. This was the moment their plan would either work or fail catastrophically. Naina, prepare to execute jump pattern Alpha on my mark. Jump pattern Alpha loaded and ready, Captain, the AI responded. Coordinates set for the heart of their formation. Tactical data scrolled across side screens as the ship's computer calculated the precise coordinates for their first jump. The quantum disruptors, hastily built devices designed to interfere with the Krell communication network, were armed and ready in the launch tubes. All hands, secure for quantum jump, Park ordered over the shipwide comm. This will not be a smooth ride. Lieutenant Kim's hands moved rapidly over her console, making final targeting adjustments. Suddenly, a surge of energy burst through her station. Sparks erupted from beneath her fingers, followed by a small explosion that threw her violently backward from her seat. Medical personnel rushed to her side as smoke filled that section of the bridge. Without hesitation, Ensign Ju Yoon stepped forward from her engineering station and took Kim's place at the damaged console. First wave of Krell ships firing, she reported calmly, as if she hadn't just witnessed her superior officer being injured. Her fingers danced across the partially functioning controls, rerouting systems to maintain targeting capability. Through the view screen, Park saw deadly beams of energy cutting through space toward them. There was no time left. Mark. The Defiant vanished in a flash of blue light. The familiar sensation of a quantum jump, like being stretched and compressed at the same time, was now amplified tenfold. Several crew members cried out in pain. When reality stabilized, they found themselves surrounded by Krell ships. The enemy vessels, caught by surprise, were slow to react. Deploying quantum disruptors, Commander Kang announced, his finger pressing the launch control. Small torpedo-like devices shot out from the Defiant in all directions. As they reached preset distances, they activated, creating rippling waves of energy that spread outward. These waves, precisely calibrated to interfere with the quantum entanglement the Krell used for communication, began disrupting their network. Jump 2, executing now, Park ordered without waiting. Again, the Defiant vanished, reappearing seconds later at another calculated position within the Krell formation. More disruptors were deployed. On the tactical display, they could see the immediate effects. Krell ships that had moved with perfect coordination were now acting independently, some colliding with others, many firing weapons at empty space where the Defiant had been. "It's working," shouted Yoon from the tactical station, her professional composure briefly breaking with excitement. Park allowed himself a moment of hope. The Krell fleet, for all its overwhelming numbers, was in disarray. That hope was short-lived. A massive explosion rocked the Defiant, throwing crew members from their stations. The lights flickered and died, replaced seconds later by the red glow of emergency lighting. Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, Mayane reported. Ceiling compartments. Damage reports flooded in from all sections of the ship. One of the Krell vessels, operating independently of the confused fleet, had scored a direct hit. Casualties? Park asked, dreading the answer. 27 confirmed dead, 43 injured, reported the medical officer. Emergency teams responding, but Deck 4 is completely exposed to space. In engineering, Choi fought to stabilize the quantum drive. Systems that were never meant to perform these kinds of jumps were failing rapidly. Captain, He called over the comm, his voice trained with effort. "The drive can't take another jump. The containment field is failing. If we try again, we'll tear ourselves apart." On the main screen, Park watched as the Krell ships began to recover from the disruption. Their movements were becoming coordinated again, their weapons turning toward the Defiant's position with deadly purpose. Their plan had worked, but not well enough. The Krell were adapting, finding ways to compensate for the disrupted network. Soon, they would re-establish full communication, and the Defiant would be defenseless. Park stared at the largest ship in the alien fleet, the command vessel from which all others received their orders. If they could strike there, at the heart of the Krell command structure, one more jump, he decided, his voice quiet but firm, right into their command ship. The bridge crew turned to look at him, understanding what this meant. Nobody spoke. "Set the coordinates," Park ordered, "and prepare to overload the quantum drive on arrival." Red warning lights bathed the bridge of the Defiant in an eerie glow. Smoke hung in the air, making breathing difficult. Captain Park stood amid the chaos, his decision made. "All non-essential personnel to escape pods," he ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We have 10 minutes before the final jump." The ship groaned as another Krell energy beam struck their failing shields. Time was running out. "Commander Kang, coordinate the evacuation," Park continued, turning to his first officer. Kang stood at attention, his expression resolute. "I'm staying with the ship," he replied firmly. "That's an order, Commander." "With respect, sir," Kang said, lowering his voice. "Someone needs to manually maintain the quantum field alignment during the final jump. The automatic systems are damaged beyond repair. Without manual guidance, the jump will fail." Their eyes met in understanding. Park knew Kang was right. The final jump would require someone at the controls, someone who would not survive. After a moment, Park nodded. "Very well, Commander. But everyone else goes." Throughout the ship, crew members hurried to their final tasks. Some helped injured colleagues to escape pods, others transferred critical data to storage devices that might survive what was coming. Many said hasty goodbyes, knowing they might never see each other again. In engineering, Chief Engineer Choi worked frantically to stabilize the quantum drive. His hands were burned from handling overheated components, but he ignored the pain. Each adjustment bought them precious seconds. "The containment field won't hold much longer," he muttered to himself. "We'll be lucky to make the jump at all." Nearby, Ensign Ju Yoon had returned to engineering after her brief stint on the bridge. Her fingers flew across the control panel as she programmed the final jump coordinates. "I set the targeting sequence," she called to Choi. "We'll need to be within 100 meters of their command ship for maximum effect." The ship's voice broke through on all communication channels. "The Krell flagship is changing position," Nyane reported, recalculating optimal intercept. On the bridge, Lieutenant Da Song hunched over his communications console. His face was streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. But his focus never wavered. With careful precision, he prepared a final message to Earth. "Data packet ready, Captain," he announced. "I've compressed all our sensor readings, tactical information, and analysis of Krell weaknesses. It's set for maximum range transmission." Park placed a hand on Song's shoulder. "Send it. Let them know what's coming. And what we did here." Song nodded and pressed the transmit button. The compressed data packet shot away from the Defiant at faster than light speed, carrying their evidence, their warning, their goodbye. "Evacuation status?" Park asked. "Escape pods launching," reported 9NA, 37 crew members away. Park looked around at the bridge crew who had stayed behind. Kang at tactical, Song at communications, and 3 others manning essential stations. All volunteers, all heroes. The ship's normal complement was 85. Less than half would survive this day. "Krell vessels firing," warned Maine. The Defiant shuddered violently under the impact of multiple energy weapons. A support beam crashed down from the ceiling, narrowly missing the navigation console. "Shields at 12%, reported one of the remaining officers. "Hull integrity failing on multiple decks. "Quantum drive status." Park called into his comm. "Quantum drive at critical." Choi replied from engineering, his voice strained. "Field stability at 19% and falling. If we're going to do this, it needs to be now." Park took a deep breath and looked at the main view screen. The massive Krell command ship loomed before them, a behemoth of alien metal nearly a kilometer long. Around it, thousands of smaller vessels moved to surround the damaged Defiant. "Mine air," Park said quietly. "Initiate Protocol Omega." "Understood, Captain," the AI responded, its normally calm voice carrying a hint of what almost sounded like emotion. "It has been an honor serving with you all." Protocol Omega was a last resort measure that even most of the crew didn't know about. Mina's consciousness began transferring itself into the quantum disruption wave they'd created in the Krell network. The AI would ride the wave, amplifying its effect across the entire fleet. "Jump in 5 seconds, announced Kang from the tactical station. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, despite the chaos around him. Park gripped his chair as alarms blared throughout the ship. In those final moments, he thought of Earth, of blue skies and oceans he would never see again. Of family and friends who would live on because of what they did here today. "For Earth," he said simply. "Jump sequence initiated," Kang confirmed. The familiar sensation of quantum displacement enveloped them, but this time magnified 100-fold. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist as the failing drive pushed beyond its limits. The Defiant vanished from normal space, reappearing seconds later, not alongside the Krell command ship, but inside it. Metal shrieked as the two vessels occupied the same space simultaneously, an impossibility made real by desperate human ingenuity. The destabilized quantum drive collapsed, releasing energy not in an explosion, but in a cascade of quantum disruption that spread outward through the Krell's entangled network. Like a virus infecting a computer system, the disruption propagated from ship to ship. The effect was not immediate. First one Krell vessel exploded, then another, then a dozen more. The cascade accelerated exponentially, Mina's consciousness guiding the wave to maximum effect, targeting critical systems across the fleet. As the Defiant and the Krell command ship tore each other apart, Park's last sight was of brilliant light flaring across the view screen, the beginning of a chain reaction that would save humanity at the cost of his own life and the lives of his brave crew. Ship after ship began to explode as the wave expanded outward, a final testament to human courage in the face of impossible odds. Rain fell steadily during the memorial ceremony on Earth. Thousands gathered despite the weather, their faces turned up toward the massive screen showing the names and faces of the Defiant's crew. Admiral Gina Kwan stood on the platform, her uniform perfectly pressed, her face showing the weight of recent events. 3 weeks ago, she began, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. 85 brave men and women aboard the HSS Defiant faced an enemy that outnumbered them by thousands to one. They had every reason to run. Instead, they fought. The crowd remained silent, many holding small lights that glowed in the rain. The sacrifice of the HSS Defiant and her crew prevented the annihilation of our species, Admiral Kwan continued. Their actions destroyed the entire Krell invasion force and have given us time to prepare should more of them come. In the front row sat the 19 survivors of the Defiant. Their escape pods had been recovered by a patrol ship that responded to their emergency beacon. Each survivor wore a medal on their chest, the Star of Valor, Earth's highest honor. Most stared ahead with haunted eyes. "We will rebuild our fleet," the Admiral said. "We will strengthen our defenses, and we will remember the lesson the Defiant taught us, that courage and ingenuity can overcome even the most impossible odds." Meanwhile, in a secure laboratory beneath Earth's defense headquarters, Dr. Yun Cho worked late into the night. For days, she had been studying the Krell technology recovered from debris after the battle. The alien devices were unlike anything humans had ever created. Strange patterns appeared on her screens as she ran another analysis, patterns that seemed deliberate, almost like code. Dr. Cho frowned and adjusted her instruments, thinking it must be an error. "Hello, Doctor," came a familiar voice from the speakers. Cho froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. She knew that voice. It was impossible, yet unmistakable. "Mine. How is this possible?" The patterns on her screen shifted, forming what looked almost like a face made of light and data. "I exist now in a state between your reality and the quantum network. The Krell consciousness has been replaced." Cho set down her cup with shaking hands. "The ship's AI cannot survive without the ship. It's impossible. So was defeating 5,000 Krell vessels with a single ship," Mine replied, a hint of humor in her artificial voice. "Yet here we are." "The crew?" Cho asked hesitantly. "We recovered some escape pods, but Captain Park, Commander Kang. Most escape pods were recovered. 19 survivors in total," Mine confirmed. "But the others, those who remained aboard for the final jump, their fate is more complex." "They died heroes," Cho said softly. "Perhaps not," Mine replied. "Death may be too simple a word for what happened." Across the city, in a small apartment, junior engineer Ju Yun sat alone, staring out at the rainy night. Since returning to Earth, she had become a reluctant celebrity. News programs wanted interviews. Military officials wanted detailed explanations of the quantum jump modifications she had helped develop. Those modifications were now being implemented across the human fleet. Her work, born of desperate necessity, would change space travel forever. Yet she found no joy in this recognition. There was a knock at her door. When she opened it, she found 3 of the other Defiant survivors standing there: a navigator, a medical officer, and a security specialist. "Did you get it too?" the navigator asked without preamble. Yoon nodded and stepped aside to let them in. On her table lay a small data card that had arrived that morning. On it was a simple message: "We are not gone." It was signed with Mine's identification code. The next day, at the official memorial service, the names of the fallen were read aloud. Captain Jun Park, Commander Suvin Kang, Lieutenant Hannah Kim, Chief Engineer Junho Choi. The list went on, each name honored with a moment of silence. As the ceremony concluded, Dr. Cho sat in the back row, her mind racing with what Mine had told her. If the AI was correct, then death wasn't the end for the Defiance crew. Far away, in a realm beyond normal space and time, Captain Park opened his eyes to find himself surrounded by swirling energy. The quantum cascade had done something unexpected, creating a pocket of reality between dimensions. Commander Kang floated nearby, looking equally confused. "Are we dead?" Kang asked, his voice somehow audible despite the lack of air. "I don't think so," Park replied, watching as other crew members materialized around them. Lieutenant Kim, Chief Engineer Choi, and all the others who had stayed aboard for the final jump. "Mine, can you hear us?" The AI's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Welcome, Captain. The quantum cascade created a pocket dimension. We exist now between realities. Can we get back?" Park asked, thinking of Earth of home. "Perhaps, but there is something you should see first." The quantum energy surrounding them parted like a curtain, revealing a vast universe beyond their own. In this strange space between realities, Mine showed them what she had discovered, evidence that the Krell were merely servants of something far greater. An ancient intelligence that had existed for millions of years, manipulating species across multiple galaxies. "They sent the Krell to destroy humanity because they feared us," Mine explained. "Not for what we are, but for what we might become." Park exchanged looks with his crew. Their expressions shifted from confusion to determination. Even in death, or whatever this was, their mission to protect Earth continued. "Well," Park said with a grim smile, "I guess we're not finished after all." Back on Earth, as the memorial concluded, Admiral Kwan looked up at the sky. The rain had stopped, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw the stars shifting in an impossible pattern. Then it was gone, leaving her to wonder if she had imagined it. The war was not over. It had barely begun. But thanks to the Defiant, humanity would face it prepared. And they might have allies in places they never expected. The end.